For the fifth time in his young career, Drew Aller tossed 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions during Saturday's Week 1 win over West Virginia. The only quarterbacks to have more 3 touchdown, 0 interception performances over the past 2 seasons are Jaden Daniels and first-round draft pick, number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 2 of the Straight from the Crest podcast.
Hey, Straight from the Crest listeners. Stat Guy Chris here to remind you that this episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at Protocol Beverage. Made by a few dudes in Erie, PA who wondered, why doesn't zero-carb beer exist? Protocol's new light shift gives you the ultimate beer experience with 0 carbs, a mere 80 calories, and they're shifting to what light beer should be. Savor the crisp, refreshing taste without compromising on flavor. Thanks, Protocol.
Chance because this Michigan team can score. It's not like there's some stagnant bunch that relies on their defense.
And I think he can win us games. I think thank you for your service, Cliff. But I go back and watch last year.
We've got a little baby version of Wendell White, Reggie Bush cooking with Katron Allen, Nick Singleton. Katron Allen runs the ball. Nobody wants to tackle, and people bounce off of him.
Welcome to Season 4, Episode 2 of the Straight from the Crest podcast. I'm your host, Michael David Kresovich, joined as always by my great friend Garrett Bastardi as we break down Penn State's 34-12 win over West Virginia and preview Penn State's home opener over Bowling Green. Garrett, the Penn State Nittany Lions open up their season with a 20-plus point win on the road. Let's get right into it, Garrett. First of all, welcome to the show. What most impressed you about Penn State's win?
Thanks, Mikey, for having me. Yeah, really, really nice, comfortable win. And I think we, both of us kind of outlined last week that we thought, we win and cover, but I'm not really sure we really thought it'd be that comfortable. And so I think explosive plays. I know through 3 quarters, I think Drew was something like 8 for 10 with 3 touchdowns with passes over 15 yards, which is just not something we saw last year. Singleton had, I believe, 2 or 3 rushes over 30 yards. He had 0 last year. And so this Andy Kotelnicki offense, definitely showed out in a hostile environment in a scenario that we've seen Penn State struggle before with the rain delay and the thunderstorm delay, and just came out and didn't skip a beat. And so I think a lot of things to be excited about. And, one of the 3 outside of the Ohio State game, one of kind of the 3 bigger hurdles already cleared. And, between kind of talked about West Virginia, USC, and Wisconsin, that you start seeing the schedule a little, kind of round into form for them, at least through the first half of the season, with that win against West Virginia. And so the next few weeks shouldn't have a lot of trouble before, getting to USC and Wisconsin and Ohio State in that trio midseason.
Yeah. To me, Penn State did what they had to do. They won on the road and picked up a big win against a team they should have beat. They were favored. We saw a lot of line movement, a lot of late money come in on the West Virginia Mountaineers, where it opened up in double digit. It went the whole way down to 7.5. Just a big day out of Trey Wallace, 117 yards, 2 catches, his first career 100-yard day. We weren't too far off in terms of the score predictions. You had 28-14, I believe, and I had 28-17. You had Bo Pribilla first touch, and I had Tyler Warren. But big day for Trey Wallace. He really stepped it up. He battled injury last year and was really this missing spark plug for the Nittany Lions offense. Outside of Trey, I know you mentioned Nick Singleton. Who else impressed you on the offensive side of the ball?
I think Amari Evans was solid. I think Pribula came in and did some cool things. He mentioned after the game and was used in some cool ways, but I thought his touchdown throw was important. I mean, he threw a great ball to Tyler Warren and just kind of shows that he can be a threat to throw the ball when out there. West Virginia, who doesn't have a bad defense, had no idea what to do when both Drew and Bo were on the field. And so a lot of creativity on the offense. Pribula looked really good, Amari Evans, but I think the guy who kind of stole the show and really needed to on the outside with Trey Wallace. I really do. It really looks to be that, there is some talent in that receiver room. Just needed to be some leadership, I think, and a little bit more of a direction from the offensive coaching staff. And those two things have really really kind of opened things up at least week one. And then again, the last thing is Nick Singleton having a big day and getting out in space and just being able to run away from people is something I think we really needed to see. And so just a really solid balanced attack. I think nearly 460 total yards on offense, and really a balanced, almost 230 on offense, or 230 in the rushing game, 230 in the passing game. And so, those are the things you want to see going into the road, tough environment, first game of the year. I mean, it looked like outside of the first quarter, it looked like a team that had been playing together for about half a season already. So that's a real testament to Coach Franklin and the staff having the guys ready for anything out on the road game one.
Yeah, they definitely had them ready to play. And like you said, Garrett, 450 plus yards of offense, 3 takeaways on the defensive side of the ball. Anytime you're in the upper 400s of total offense and you're winning the turnover battle, that's recipe for success. Another recipe is quarterback play. Penn State got a great performance, one we haven't seen in a couple of years since Sean Clifford was there, in terms of productivity and efficiency. Drew Allard just had a monster day. Half of his yards went to Trey Wallace, but he looked good. He looked different in this new offense. What about Drew's performance really stuck out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think end of the first half, going and saying, hey, let's take a shot, and him throwing the ball down, 60 yards in the air downfield for a big gain. I believe it was to Amari Evans. I can't remember, or Trey Wallace, whoever. But then, and then to go back shoulder and just throw a beautiful touch pass for a touchdown. That really kind of changed the game. That kind of showed, okay, Penn State can open it up. But I think the thing that was most impressive was, Drew's ability to run the ball and not looking like a bulky flow runner, but someone who, if the play breaks down and needs to get 7 yards and, not athletic enough where guys are going to really spy him. There's a lot of man coverage out there, and he just really made West Virginia pay with his feet. I mean, 6 rushes for 44 yards. Really impressive stuff. I mean, for a guy to have, nearly 260 total yards and on almost a quarter of that be on the ground, for a guy who isn't totally known as a runner, just kind of shows the dual threat nature of both quarterbacks on the field, which is just going to go right into what Andy Kotelnicki does. It's exactly what he did at Kansas last year, and so just kind of really excited to see where things are going to go from here. I'm just getting a lot of Joe Moorhead vibes from him, which is obviously a couple of years offensively that we all look pretty fondly upon.
Yeah, to me, Drew went from kind of this escape artist in the pocket to a credible threat to run the ball. He just did a lot of things very, very well, especially his throws. He made some NFL caliber throws. A lot of the time they were open. West Virginia was not a great defense, but you can't discredit Drew's day. And just a great overall performance from Nick Singleton. Our correspondent Doug sent us this on Twitter. He eclipsed 21.8 miles per hour on one of his runs. And that's just phenomenal, just to still have that burst in him. But let's now switch to the wide receivers, Garrett, because we saw 2 wide receivers we expected to have a pretty solid role in this offense, and neither of them did, in Sanders and Julian Fleming. Julian Fleming didn't get a single target, and Sanders was he didn't play an offensive snap. He did return punts. I'm hearing he will play this Saturday in their opener. What do you make of this Julian Fleming situation? Here's a guy, comes into Ohio State, unreal expectations, doesn't really work out there just with the talent in front of him. Is supposed to be that missing piece at Penn State, and we've yet to see that.
Yeah, and he played a lot of snaps, just no targets. Yeah, there was questions about him in the press conference after Coach Franklin. He was out there blocking, which he does a lot of the little things. I think there's a lot of things that we can't really see, intangible things, when it comes to leadership that he's brought to the room. Being within a program for several years that has had, just more experience with success in Penn State. And so there's those intangible things, but yeah, would like to see him. I would like to see him more targeted on the field. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit more of a game plan for him against Bowling Green. But yeah, I don't really know totally what to make of that. Maybe it was just by chance, and he wasn't the guy really targeted. Only 2 receivers caught passes on Saturday. And Trey Wallace and Amari Evans, and so it's I don't want to make too much of it. Just something to watch in the next several weeks going forward.
Yeah, I mean, listening to Coach Franklin's press conference earlier this week, he kind of addressed that situation. He pointed to Tyler Warren's touchdown there, where it was Fleming who really opened it up, who attacked the safety, pulled him over, and did that. But I think we see a bigger role in Saunders and Fleming this weekend. Not necessarily they're going to touch the ball every time, but they're going to create opportunities for other guys, which at the end of the day, if you're winning games, if you're getting 5 touchdowns compared to West Virginia's 1, that's success. That's recipe for success. Let's go over the defensive side of the ball, because Penn State was able to completely limit Garrett Green. Garrett Green's best ability is to use his legs. He's not a great passer. He made some decent throws, but Penn State took Garrett Green completely out of the game, shut them down. I thought outside of one play in the first quarter by Tony Rojas, he really was and Abdul Carter played a great game. He got a lot of attention, but Tony Rojas was my player of the game for Penn State. Who was yours?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys you can kind of go with. It was kind of cool to see Smith Vilbert in there. Strip Green late in the game. Probably Kevin Winston Jr. 7 solo tackles, 12 total, leading the team. Jalen Reed was really solid as well. It's just kind of, this defense has just kind of turned into a reload defense. It just seems like, and Coach Franklin listed all these stats where the defense was actually better this year than it was last year. In his Monday press conference, maybe it was pushed to yesterday, but all around really solid performance. And to be brutally honest, I mean, West Virginia should have had half as many points as they did. They got a gift on a 4th and short, and got a gift on a 3rd and goal to go. I'm not really sure. There's a couple calls and a couple of replays that were just like, why do we even have replay if you're not going to overturn a pretty blatant call? So the defense score-wise actually played better than the score indicated. And so, but to your point about Garrett Green, I mean, 10 rushes for 5 yards, an unbelievable job containing a guy who's pretty athletic. And so I don't want to dismiss. It's going to be interesting to see West Virginia the rest of the season. I don't want to dismiss. Maybe they're just not as good as what we thought, but they returned a lot of guys from a team that went 9-4 last year. I was expecting, a really good season, and this defense just really kind of shut them down. And so I thought Tom Allen did a great job. He runs a very creative, in a different way than Manny Diaz, but a creative style defense where you just kind of don't know where the blitzes are coming from. It's kind of hard to peg down. And so he did a good job of just kind of bringing pressure in different instances in different areas where West Virginia maybe wasn't expecting. And so the staff and the players, both did a really solid job on the road week 1.
Yeah, I think the depth at the not only the secondary, but this defensive line is really going to help out Penn State down the stretch. And you pair it with Tom Allen, just like you said. I mean, they held West Virginia to just under 250 yards. They took away the ball. They showed that they're not missing a step from last year, despite missing 2 of their top edge rushers to the draft and essentially replacing the entire secondary. West Virginia obviously is, you mentioned it earlier, they're not the Ohio State. We'll learn about that later. I think as Penn State fans here and as analysts of the team, what you can do is appreciate the win, appreciate the fashion they won in. With that being said, there was 2 things that really concerned me. Penn State was 5 for 11 on 3rd down. I'd like to see them get a little better than that. And just 8 penalties. A couple of the penalties were little head scratchers. But those were 2 areas where I saw personally Penn State could look to make that improvement. And the famous saying goes, you make the biggest improvement between week 1 and week 2. It's the most important time to do it. To you, what do you think that you need to see this weekend that you didn't see last weekend, or what didn't you like in the West Virginia game? Something along the lines of that.
Yeah. You won't be able to get away with a slow start against USC and Ohio State. So again, that can absolutely be chalked up to, first game of the year on the road. It seemed like there were some disconcerting signals at the line. It looked like West Virginia was clapping Drew in game, and then Coach Franklin afterwards were very clear that that's what they heard and what they saw. And so maybe that first fumble wasn't really on us. And then gotta not jump off sides every single time there's a hard count off on the on the defensive side of the ball. And so those are two things. I will say before I forget, all things considered, Mike, I was at the Texas A&M Notre Dame game Saturday night, and you go there, you go to A&M, and they have these unbelievable facilities, all these resources, all this talent, and I do think they're going to be good under a new regime. But man, oh man, like I don't think the fan base at Penn State, not having that perspective of a different team you root for that's kind of in the same world and same bubble, like the consistency, the ability to just pick up where you left off and go into a hostile environment and just absolutely just stick the nails to a team like West Virginia really goes sometimes without saying, and it should go with saying. And so just thought we should mention that at the outset. Like we should be we need to beat Ohio State, we need to beat Michigan, we need to win titles and get to the playoff. But it's a lot more fun being 10-2 and being in the hunt than it is going 7-5 and underachieving and just blowing some games you shouldn't. And what 22-4, I think Coach Franklin is his last 26 games against the spread when you are 7-point favorite, unbelievable number, like the best in the country. We're beating who we're supposed to beat. And the way that you beat these good teams are these couple of things that we need to clean up. Like we just mentioned, quick starts, which I think with this offense being powered up might happen, and then just clean up the penalties. So, but all in all, there's not a lot to pick at, week one.
Win for the Nittany Lions in week one on the road at West Virginia. It's time for football in Happy Valley. The Falcons of Bowling Green are marching into Beaver Stadium. Noon kickoff for this MACtion game. Bowling Green of the MAC, Penn State of the Big Ten. It's a third all-time meeting between the two schools. They last met in 1998, where Joe Paterno picked up win number 300 in his coaching career. The time prior, they met back in 1987. Joe Paterno picked up win number 200 in that victory. Some history here. Bowling Green defeated Miami back in 2022, and they've covered their last two games against Big Ten opponents. They come into this game as a 34.5-point underdog, an experienced quarterback, experienced staff, and looking to raise some chaos in Happy Valley. Coach Scott Leffler, he's in year 6. He spent time in Boston College, Virginia Tech, and Auburn prior to his reign in Bowling Green. Another interesting part of their staff, Garrett, that I found, their special teams coordinator, Alex Bayer. He was a 2013 grad of the school. He came over from Valparaiso, where he coached their special teams unit back in 2020. They blocked 9 field goals during the 2020 season. They also ran back in their week 1 game last week, a 100-yard kick to start their season. So some electricity and a veteran quarterback. You want to talk about kind of what the Falcons are bringing into Beaver Stadium Saturday?
Yeah, Connor Basilic, I think. There we go. We've been battling on this Basilic name, but yeah, definitely experienced quarterback. His third start. He's definitely a child of the transfer portal. Was SEC co-freshman of the year when he was at Mizzou in 2020, and so definitely a lot of talent. He transferred to Indiana, was hurt on and off, but got the start and the win week 1 when Bowling Green played Fordham. But yeah, there is some talent on this roster. I mean, it's not like Penn State's like a 52-point favorite. It opened at 32. It's probably pretty good being at 30, 34 and a half. And so again, they're running back to 15 carries, 161 yards, 3 TDs. I mean, that's nothing to scoff at. So clearly a balanced attack. Clearly have some good numbers on special teams. I thought those stats were pretty sick about the 200 and 300th win for Joe Pa. You're just not going to get that in other podcasts. That's why you got to go straight to the crest, but straight from the crest. But yeah, I mean, they're a team that has a pulse, and you're gonna have to go out and roll the balls out and play. But I don't expect Penn State having a whole lot of trouble against Bowling Green at noon on Saturday.
Yeah, listening to Coach Franklin's presser earlier this week, he described them as a big physical bunch. They return 8 on their offense, have a veteran quarterback, and as Garrett mentioned, running back Terrion Stewart, 5'9", 230. He's a bowling ball. He's going to create some room and space and try to just do anything he can. They know they're overpowered. but this is a team that will be competitive in the MAC. They have Penn State this weekend. They have to go to the Aggies next weekend and play Texas A&M. They're going to be feisty. But as I said, Terrion Stewart is their running back. They did bring in 2 transfers. They brought in R.J. Garcia, wideout from Kansas State, and Malcolm Johnson from Auburn. They did lose their top 3 wideouts last year. Justin Pegas is the guy who had the 100-yard kick return briefly there. And Harold Fannin is a great tight end. He's one of the – he probably won't get drafted next year. He's about the 12th best tight end who's eligible for the draft. You could see him get signed late. But that's pretty much their offense. They're a spread attack. They're going to try to run the ball. I don't think they'll have much success. Hopefully Penn State creates the chaos there. And just a brief flyover of their defense here. Last year, Michigan's offense turned the ball over 5 times on the offensive side of the ball. This Bowling Green team forced 3 of those 5 turnovers last year in one game. They bring back 7 starters, bring in transfer C.J. Brown from Northern Illinois, the best school in the MAC. And Anthony Hawkins is a player to look out for, defensive end, and Joseph Sipp, linebacker. So that's pretty much the personnel breakdown in terms of the X's and O's. I think Penn State knows what it has to do. And we say this every game when Penn State's a 20-plus point favorite against a favorable matchup. You stay healthy, you work on the things, you improve. You get some younger guys in there, get them experience. What are you most looking forward to in this game from Penn State's side?
Yeah, just kind of cleaning up the things from week 1. The next 2 weeks are definitely the next 3 weeks before you go in the conference play are kind of get right games. Not that things are wrong, but just kind of make sure the things that you need to be cleaned up heading into the conference play are there. And so like all things we've already talked about. You don't want to read too much into this. Again, I think this is a little different than the Kent State game. After the bye, Kent State does not really have much of a pulse, and that game should be a walk without doing much. I think again, you just have to Penn State just has to pay attention in this game. I don't see, and we'll get to our picks here in a minute. I don't see it being some 60-point win. And again, I think that the line is a good line, and maybe this game is kind of Penn State's got to march the ball down the field. I would like to see some extended, some good drives, running and passing the ball. Would like to see Katron Allen have a little bit more action in the running game. But yeah, just cleaning up some of the things we've already talked about, not looking over the opponent, and being 1-0 this week and getting better as you head into the bye.
Yeah, I think that's the crucial thing. Get better every single week. I don't love the bye week. I actually do like it because I have a wedding to go to next week. So it gives us the time off. So we will have no show next week. We will be back for the Kent State preview there. But Garrett, I'm a little surprised you didn't mention Scott Hamilton's name when you talk about Bowling Green.
Why is that, Mikey?
Do you not know who Scott Hamilton is?
No.
1984 Olympic figure skating champion, gold medalist.
What? We didn't do our top. We did not do
We'll
our
start
top.
That in Big Ten. We never do at a conference. Do you know what Hamilton was known for? I can't believe you didn't know this.
No, clearly winning the figure skating champion.
He was known for the backflip in figure skating.
Figure skating?
Yeah.
I've only seen the only figure skating I've ever watched is Chaz Michaels in Blades of Glory.
I did a little research here.
The Iron Lotus, Mikey. That's a real move.
Yeah. So at the time, backflips were legal, but not in competition rules. But he would do it to please the crowd. So he's the Chaz Michaels. Now? No, he has nothing to do with the football program at all.
He's just the Bowling Green.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's one of the best. But Bowling Green, a little south of Toledo. Let's get to prediction time. By the way, I don't know if you saw this before the game last week for your touchdown prediction. Do you remember who you initially said before Bo Prabilia?
I thought I said Dinkins.
You did, then you changed it to Prabilia like right after. But Dinkins was actually scratched. He didn't play last week.
Yeah, I noticed that.
But he'll be in this week.
We hear anything about that? Okay.
He's playing this week. So before we get into score prediction, let's guess who's going to score the first touchdown. You can go first here.
Katron Allen.
Okay, I have Nick Singleton. So
We're
both 0-1 on that. We're pretty spot on with the score, and I'll just jump into the score right now. I have this 37-10 Penn State. I see a kind of a slower start. Yeah, I think Bowling Green covers, and the over-under is right at 48, which is interesting to me because Penn State could cover that by themselves. This reminds me of kind of the Ohio State where you would just either take the side or the over, and it's going to cash for Ohio State. But yeah, I think it's a game where you see a lot of Bo Prabili in the first half. I think you also see Jack Ham's son potentially getting in at quarterback in the fourth quarter.
Wow. But you're throwing things from all over the field here.
In all seriousness, I think it's a game where you just hope and pray everyone stays healthy. You get some experience and you light up the scoreboard and the defense continues to dominate. I have 37-10 Nittany Lions.
All right. I also don't have a cover, but I really like the over. I got Penn State 45-14. And so that'd be a 59, total at a over under of 48.5. From ESPN Bet. And so, no cover. I will say our boy Josh Pate loves a cover, at least at the number where he got it at 32. And so there's some, there's definitely been some big movement. I think Bowling Green, they're not a terrible team. And so, 45-14. And I agree with you. I think maybe, 21-7 at the half, 24-7 at the half, always kind of comfortable. But yeah, just coming off an emotional week one, kind of a get right game. A little bit like the fight in UNLV Rebs in our dynasty. Just a big win against Hawaii last night, but it was a get right game. No cover, but after a tough emotional week, you just got to get the dub and move on.
Yeah, I'm seeing 90% of the money actually right now on Penn State of that 34.5 number. But just let's kind of recap this week. You have the big win on Saturday, of course, over West Virginia. Monday comes around. 4-star wide receiver Matthew Alton from Virginia Tech after the Hokies and Brent Pry loss. He flips to Penn State. Tuesday, 4-star Malachi Goodman, offensive line. He flips to Penn State. Just a great week for Penn State football. Hopefully it continues into this weekend. As always, everyone, thank you very much for listening. No show next week. We will be back 2 weeks from today to preview the Kent State game. This was brought to you by Protocol Beverage. Garrett, thank you very much for joining the show today.
Thank you, Mikey. Appreciate you having me.